What is going on, everybody? RogersBase here, and welcome to my very first video game discussion of the year. I have amassed a great group of people for this one, and today we're going to be talking all about the Nintendo Switch 2. It has not been announced yet. We don't know what's going on with the Switch 2, but the announcement, we're sure, is imminent. So we're going to talk about everything related to Switch 2, price point, release date, launch games. You want to know about it? We're going to talk about it. Joining me on this lovely discussion, we have Damiani from Easy Allies. Welcome, Damiani. Pleasure talking to you again.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, naturally. We have main man Brandon. Everybody knows him as Editor Sama on the YouTube channel. But of course, Brandon from Good Vibes Gaming is joining us as well. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Making his first appearance, by the way, on the YouTube channel, we have Mr. Philly Beats You, #1 Nintendo Guide extraordinaire YouTuber. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
What's going on? Super happy to be here to discuss this.
Super happy to have you. And then, of course, the #1 video game podcast on the internet. Of course, we got Spawn Wave. What's going on, Spawn? How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Absolutely. And last, but certainly not least, it wouldn't be a gaming discussion without the one and only Stealth. It is a pleasure seeing you again, my friend. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Of course. Now, the first thing that I figure we should talk about right now is when we think the Switch 2 is going to get announced. Because obviously there have been a lot of news stories regarding the Switch 2. There's been rumblings of a Nintendo Direct in February. So that's sort of like the first question I just want to open to the floor with. Like, when do you think we're going to see this thing? And anyone can speak.
Well, it was interesting that you said that you thought it was imminent, because I actually kind of disagree with that. We're going to start a little bit more spicy.
Okay.
Because I think the Switch 2 will be later in the year. I know we'll get into that later. So I don't think Nintendo likes to do long lead time for this. So I think we're getting the announcement in the summer. I think we're going to have a big summer event for this, for the Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be called. And I think anything between now and then is just going to be wrapping up the OG Switch software lineup for probably the first half of this year.
Right on. Wow, I did not expect you to say summer. So you don't think anything's going on with like the Nintendo financials happening in February? Wow.
Nope.
Stealth, do you disagree? Because I feel like you do.
Actually, I might surprise you. I kind of agree. I feel like we're gonna get one last Switch-focused Nintendo Direct in February.
Okay.
Gonna give us release dates for Paper Mario and Luigi's Mansion. And then after that, there'll be a showcase, perhaps over the summer. I think they might give it a little bit of breathing room between the last Direct and the Switch 2 showcase.
Right on. Anybody else agree with me that they think it's going to happen in February? Anybody?
I was about to agree with you, but then when they all started to bring this up about the summer, my brain started to go there.
Bro. Peer pressure.
It's peer pressure. I had it. But then I'm thinking about, Nintendo has this Nintendo Live thing going on, like at PAX West and all this stuff, and by potentially announcing it right now, they can kind of ruin the launch of the certain games coming up. Like it might, throw away the hype from it. Like, oh, why should I bother purchasing these Switch games when the new system's coming out? And I don't think they do that to their games. So that's kind of why I just like flip-flopped.
I do think it's interesting you brought that up, because I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of, games coming up and then potentially eating into the hype of that, I mean, what if the system is backwards compatible? Because then you could just make the argument of them running better. Like Spawn, I see you about to say something.
Well, what kind of lead up time do you think Nintendo is going to work with on it, from announcement to release?
I mean, I honestly think we get something similar to what we got the September before the Switch initially came out. Remember there was that little video where we all thought it was Chris Pratt playing Tears of the Kingdom, and then you had that little bit with like King Boo where they were playing Mario Kart in the back of the car, and then like the little esports arena was Splatoon. I'm assuming they're gonna do something kind of similar to that, where you get like a teaser of whatever the system is in February, like probably after the financials, assuming the earliest they could possibly do it, maybe like the very end of the fiscal year is what, March 6th or March 7th or something, so probably sometime around then. And then I think a big blowout of what the system actually is in summer, followed with a launch either in late summer or maybe even fall. That's my guess.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the system came out in September and they did want to make an announcement after March, so like in April, with a trailer, as you're mentioning.
Yeah.
And then they have an event, and then they have a lead up to it in September. That's if it comes out in September. If it comes out in November, then yeah, they could do it over the summer. I think that's absolutely possible. But you mentioned the financials. That would be end
Yeah.
of March, would be the end of their fiscal year. Then
Yep.
they would lead into it with they'll have a gathering of the shareholders. All that'll happen through May to June. And if they don't have anything revealed by then, they'll probably have a lot of awkward questions asked. So
Yes, exactly.
most likely they would want to have something to showcase outside of another movie announcement or something there. So
That's right.
I think that is going to play into it. And I think they'll have a very weird February direct. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. And then like a month later, they start talking about the next system. So the only way you could kind of have that February direct and it not be strange is to close it out with something like Metroid Prime 4. And then
Sure.
you go into the announcement for the next system
And
in
I'm
March or April.
I'm sure we're going to talk about Prime 4 a little bit later, like in terms of potential of that being a cross-system kind of launch game or something. But Brandon, I have not heard from you yet. I want to know, when do you think this thing is coming out?
I think March or April makes the most sense personally. Like, we don't know a
Okay.
ton of the lineup past that point. Nintendo doesn't want any more than 4 to 6 months of lead time from announcement to release. Just like you said, what they did with the original Switch, that was announced in October and it came out in March the following year.
Yeah.
We're kind of entering that position that we were at with the first Nintendo Switch, where the conversation is starting to become too loud. And I don't think they want that to persist for too long. So waiting for the end of the fiscal year, waiting for the Switch lineup that we currently know about to kind of fizzle out, I think makes the most sense. And you want it to come out before the holiday season, not during
Definitely.
it.
And I think we're all in agreement then this thing is coming out this year. Like, without a doubt, I think that's a unanimous thing. This is a
I'd be shocked
2024
if it
release.
wasn't.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's
we all
about
agree on
time.
something. Yeah. Now, I want to know if we all agree on the next topic, which is backwards compatibility. Whether or not this thing is going to have it. Like, obviously, Spawn, I've listened to many podcasts of you guys talking about it, and rumors of the backwards compatibility. I know GVG, Easy Allies, you guys have mentioned it as well. So I am very curious. Do you think it's going to be fully backwards compatible? Do you think it's going to be digital only backwards compatible? Do you think it's going to use the physical cartridges? Maybe, like, what's the deal? What's the vibe right now? What are people feeling?
I feel like it has to be fully backwards compatible. Switch games are like financial annuities for Nintendo. You know, they sell insane amounts every month, even like the 5-year-old games.
Yep.
So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense for Nintendo to say, okay, we're done selling this now, unless it's, you know, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Then they're okay stopping selling
Right.
it. But everything else, like, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Mario Kart alone sells like 1 million units a quarter, at least. Even though we're probably going to be getting a new Mario Kart, people
Right.
are going to want to still buy the old one. So it just doesn't make any sense. But
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because breaking news as of when we are recording this is they are stopping production on a lot of Switch games. I think it was the physical release for, so some people are nodding their heads, I'm seeing. So like, I think it was the physical release for Pikmin 3 Deluxe was one of them, right? Fire Emblem Engage and Origami King. I'm assuming that list is going to continue. There's some rumblings that might end up leading into something related to like a Nintendo Selects kind of deal, where you're going to get like discounted games that are going to be on the Switch. We still don't, like, the thing that's crazy to me about all of this, right? And us being in unprecedented territory, we have not had a price drop yet. Like, that's absurd that we've not yet had a price drop for the Switch after all these years on the market. Not that they've needed to, right? It's been selling well, but I digress. We're getting off topic. That's for something a little bit later. We're still on backwards compatibility. So, Spawn, how do you feel?
Yeah, at this point, I have to believe that they're going to do backwards compatibility to a point. There'll be some that get left behind, because like the Switch OLED doesn't work with all the games. It doesn't work with Labo because the screen
Does it
size
really?
is off. So
Oh, I
yeah, the
didn't
screen
know that.
size is off, so it doesn't fit. Or like Mario Party, for example, you can't play that on the Switch Lite. So there are already exceptions to the rule with that, and I feel like 95% of games will work with this new system, but there will be a few that just don't, and they'll have it outlined, I'm sure, on their site. But I'm curious if it's going to be like the DS to the 3DS situation, where you have a cartridge slot that still fits the older game, but you get like a new, maybe they change the color of the plastics and they add a little notch on the side, and that's how they make it work.
Yeah.
But it's weird, because you feel like they should do that, but to my understanding, with some of the technical details around it, it's not going to be easy necessarily. Like, I've had like Modern Vintage Gamer did a whole video discussing it, and it's not as drop-in as you'd like on Nvidia's side. So it seems like they'll have to do some technical wizardry necessarily to make it work well. But
Yeah.
I'm more hopeful that it is backwards compatible with improvements, because we never got the Switch Pro that was thrown around so much, and seeing certain games like Pokemon or Bayonetta stuff just struggle at times for frame rate and resolution. I would like the option to grab a game from my library, pop it in, and all of a sudden it's a stable frame rate, and I don't know, I'll shoot for the moon, 1080p.
There you go.
Then yeah, I think that would be really cool to see that, and in fact, might even pop some sales on certain games that got left behind a bit because of the concerns around the technical details.
Yeah, and I do almost wonder if that would end up being like kind of the ad campaign they're going for, right? Because there was the rumor about, like, the first report out of the year, it was like one of the first stories that came out at the beginning of 2024, was that thing about the Switch 2 essentially being like a souped up Switch, right? Like them not having some major gimmick for this one, them just essentially iterating on what already made the Switch good. And I do almost wonder if they'd be like, they jump on the bandwagon. Not that they would straight up say, like, Scarlet and Violet ran terribly, but it runs good on this. Like, I do wonder if there will almost be something of, like, you've played it before, now play it on the new system.
That's the patch. The Pokemon patch is the
there you
Switch
go.
2.
There you
A
go.
long-awaited patch.
Exactly.
I feel like another thing. I feel like it has to be backwards compatible, because if you remember with the Xbox, Phil Spencer mentioned that with the Xbox One generation, that was a terrible one for them to struggle with because of the digital libraries that were built. I feel like now is when most people on Nintendo built their digital library,
Yes.
because the Switch already played into that with the portable nature. And if you have so many, Nintendo talking about monthly active users all day now in their investor stuff. If you're willing to discuss that with Nintendo accounts, you form Nintendo systems. They did an entire presentation where Amazon, AWS, talked about how they improved the back end of the eShop, which I must have missed, but they apparently improved the eShop and stuff for accounts so that it can go forward. So it seems like, I don't know why you would restart, you just continue it.
You agree with that, Philly?
The library.
It's an optimized ecosystem at this point. They're reaching that point, and to just stop all that once we made this much progress with the way they're giving out old games and things like that, it's a system created at this point, and you have to carry that forward. Otherwise, a lot of people will be very upset to start again.
That's right. Like Brandon knows, I would be very, very upset. I don't want to carry this stuff over. I think we even talked about this. I don't know if we edited that video or not, or if we ended up actually making that one at all, but that discussion about the original rumor of like the Breath of the Wild that was shown behind closed doors at Gamescom or something, running on the newer Switch. Like if maybe that ends up being one of the games that they end up pushing, being like, hey, it looks so much better on the system. Or of course, Tears of the Kingdom, considering that's the newest one there. But yeah, how are you feeling about
the idea?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, what do you think about the idea of popping a cartridge in and they then push an entire file to your system? Like you have proof of ownership, but then you have to download the whole game.
I wouldn't hate it. If that's the solution that allows me to play games on the next system, I wouldn't hate it. I feel like that's one of the big things moving forward with the Switch 2 that I actively want, and that I think I would be upset if it didn't have it, is backwards compatibility. So, yeah.
I have a big financial stake when it comes to backwards compatibility, because this is the generation I did nearly go all digital, and that was because of the portable nature. So if we end up not being able to carry that forward, and I'd be shocked if that was the case because of the Nintendo account system and the effort they put into that, I'd be screwed, and I really don't want that, man.
All right. You don't want
I'm going all
trapped
digital
on the system. Because honestly, I kind of am the same boat, right? I feel like a lot of the review codes are things, they're all digital copies. I think if there's a fun little game, something like Suika Game, for example, that I've spent like a ton of time on, or something like F-Zero 99, right? Like so many of those 99 games got completely discontinued. They didn't have the player base, and yet there's still a lot of us who are currently playing F-Zero 99 regularly. And if they're able to carry those games over, like I'm assuming at the bare minimum, NSO stuff carries over, right? Like I think they continue building out the libraries of the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy Advance, like all the stuff that they already have there. If they put in place these Nintendo account systems and people are already paying for online, why would they just not day one carry all of that stuff over? Unless there's some weird thing on the back end where you can't get the emulators to work, I feel like that has to be the case. You know, how you feel
I never
about
want
it?
to live. I never want to live through that Wii U drip feed again.
No,
with
absolutely
Virtual
not.
Console.
No.
Please.
No, we don't need to wait again for Banjo-Kazooie to drop. And especially now with Jet Force Gemini now being added on there too, like we're actually getting some good hidden gems being thrown onto these NSO apps. And I feel like a lot of people are going back and playing these now. Like, keep them on there. I don't want to have to wait and pray that one day Harvest Moon 64 gets carried over again. It's like, I got it now. I don't want to have to do that again. Damian, I saw you nodding your head during the NSO thing. So how do you feel about this too?
I think NSO is like probably the safest lock. I mean, this is Nintendo. Nothing is for certain. Like trying to like say they're going to do something predicted is like a fool's errand. But they are investing a lot in that, like even like updating some of those game releases to run even better. You're not doing that if you're not gonna bring those forward. I think those are the safest. I think digital is the next safest one as well. All like your digital first party games are going to probably, within reason, are going to be able to carry over. Some that might have some technical issues, they'll probably potentially work through those. Physical, I really hope they do as well, but obviously, as the point pointing out, there are possibly some challenges there. That's the one I would not be completely surprised if they don't actually support physical backwards compatibility, or only offer some kind of limited time thing where it push the file if like you insert your cart. But you know, they're only going to do it for a limited time. My biggest questions are, besides that, with backwards compatibility, is when you put in your old cartridge or bring forward your digital file, is it going to be a free upgrade to run them better on the Switch successor, or is it going to be an upgrade path, or are they going to make you buy an enhanced version to get like the benefits of the new hardware? That's my biggest question.
Tears of the Kingdom 2, 2.0 or whatever, right? I hope they don't. Right? Like, I think that's a big... I have said this before about the Naughty Dog games, but I feel like we didn't need The Last of Us 2 remastered or whatever. There's no reason for that. And I think, at the same time, I don't necessarily see Nintendo going that route simply because we're already in, like, the HD era. I think it would have been different from the jump from, like, GameCube to the Wii or the Wii U, right? Where we got Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD, and those were their own separate things. Or even something similar to what's happening right now with Metroid Prime, right? We got remastered. There's a rumor that Prime 2 Echoes is probably going to be released at some point soon too as well, and then obviously that'll lead into the stuff with Metroid Prime 4. I think if anything, Prime 4 is probably a really good potential gauge of what they're going to do with backwards compatibility, right? Because if you own a Switch version of Prime 4 but you plop that baby in the Switch 2, I'm assuming there is going to be some type of file dump that's going to allow you to play a more souped up, better version of the game. I don't imagine that they're going to sell the same game to you twice. I don't think it's going to happen.
I think more like when you point out like remasters, that's something that both Sony and Nintendo have been actively doing for the last few years, is taking older games and bringing them forward for a new version for you to purchase outright. But I don't see them, just doing like, a different version just that runs on both, that. What would be interesting is that they try and charge any kind of like fee to access those upgraded abilities, or perhaps they tie the enhancements to your Nintendo Switch Online account to get you to subscribe to that service.
Exactly.
It's like you want those, it's included in that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And the last thing is, because there was that report a while ago suggesting that maybe third parties aren't on board with the backwards compatibility of the game. So that's why I said first party. Will they allow third parties to opt out of that and allow them to restrict access to old, like the Switch versions, and force you to have to buy is it going to be left up to third parties, or will Nintendo enforce a universal policy?
That's an interesting point that I didn't even really consider, thinking about the third-party stuff. Because again, like the Switch has had a great third-party library. We're not sitting in a situation like the Wii U, or even like arguably the Wii, right? The Wii had some really great, like unique third-party games. We had stuff like Elebits, we had stuff like Zack and Wiki, like Boom Blocks. But in reality, it wasn't getting those really giant multi-platform games that were on the PS3 and that were on the 360, barring, like worse versions of Call of Duty. So I do sort of wonder what they're going to be doing moving forward with Switch 2. Yeah. Anything else on the backwards compatibility talk right now that you guys want to throw in there? I do love the idea of it potentially being like an NSO related thing. Not that I love the idea that you would have to pay for it, but I do like the idea that like, because I'm already paying for NSO, so long as it's not like an additional cost, that would be a really good way to go about it. Because realistically, most people who have a Switch and play online, like, they're the ones who are going to care about this kind of thing. I think if you give little Timmy, his version of Elden Ring, or not like, they're probably not Elden Ring, but like there's a rumored Hi-Fi Rush port that's potentially coming to Switch, right? Like that's a big news story coming out. I'm assuming that game would run much better on the Switch 2 than it would on Switch 1. And so I don't think, like I said, Little Timmy would particularly care about like the FPS of Hi-Fi Rush, but I do think people like us would. So, yeah.
The one thing I would say is if it isn't backwards compatible, pull that Band-Aid off quickly.
Yes.
And don't let people theorize and rumor monger about it. Just talk about it.
Yeah. Say straight up.
Oh, that's gonna be ugly if it's not backwards compatible.
No,
yeah.
incredibly.
It's gonna be bad.
I would be mad. I'm the one that people call a Nintendo fanboy all the time, and it's like still and all. I'd be furious if it wasn't backwards compatible. I think that'd be terrible. Yeah. But I think we're all in agreement on that then. So then I guess the other question I have is, do you guys think Switch 2 is going to have any major gimmick? Like, again, we talked very briefly about that story that came out where essentially the early reports are that it's essentially a souped up Switch, right? It's like a more powerful Switch. But do you think there's going to be like some weird dual screens thing going on, potentially with like a clamshell design or something to play DS games on NSO? Or do you think like, is there going to be some other weird thing? Or are they just finally learning their lesson and going, no, you know what? Switch worked. Let's continue moving forward with the Switch 2.
I mean, I think there could be some weird things with the controllers, because that's a thing that Nintendo likes to do. They like to put new features into their controllers, but other than like talking about like increased battery life and things like that, I think it's going to be more like feature enhancements versus a gimmick. Maybe something new with the Joy-Cons, that's possible, but I think it is going to be mostly a Switch.
Actually, that brings up a good point, too. You mentioned the Joy-Cons. Do you guys think the Joy-Cons are going to be backwards compatible? Because I don't know if you'll be able to, like, slide them into the design, but I'm assuming you would still totally be able to use the controllers. I mean, I've amassed, like, a giant collection of Joy-Cons over the past 7 years that I don't want to just never use again.
I think there'll
Probably
be a
sync
2.0, but I don't think there's any reason they shouldn't work.
Yeah.
Now, sliding on the system itself, that's a whole nother discussion, but I
Right.
think they'll work at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least they'll connect to the next one, you know?
Yeah.
Blue's
Yeah.
good.
You need the Joy-Con for certain Switch games, like
Yeah.
Super Mario Party. So,
Yeah.
like you need it. So it'd probably go into like a Switch mode for backwards compatibility, and then your Joy-Cons will just. I mean, you can sync your Joy-Con to your phone or your PC at this point.
Right.
It's just Bluetooth. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they would work that out so it would function.
Man, you said Switch mode, and it made me remember, like, the days of the Wii mode on the Wii U.
Wii mode, yeah,
I know,
that is
that's
very
right.
very similar.
That's right. But
What
any
I like
other...
about
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
the
Brandon.
Switch- what I like about the Switch in terms of the idea of having a gimmick or not is like, because of the nature of the console itself, that kind of thing is very modular. You don't have to launch the system with the gimmick. You can sell a gimmick later, like they
Yeah.
did with Labo. If they position something like that alongside launch, then they could have their gimmick that they're known for without, cruxing the whole system on it. I think that's ideal for me. If it does have a gimmick, I'm not going to be mad. It's what I've come to expect.
Sure.
But I just don't want it to come at the expense of the general user experience or drive up cost.
So what you're telling me is you think Labo 2 is the big launch title. That's the killer app for Switch 2 is Labo 2. That's the...
Yeah, they're selling more cardboard.
That's right.
I feel like Nintendo, what they might do for this, if they're gonna play it safe and just keep it like a better Switch, is do what they did with HD Rumble and just repackage and rename something we've had, like the advanced haptic feedback. It's HD Rumble. So here's a high refresh screen on your system, and it's called like True Motion or something, something weird
Sure.
that they just package it. 120 hertz screen, it can hit higher, or just 90. If you have a Switch or a Steam Deck OLED, that's 90 hertz, and there is a noticeable difference there for faster moving games. Just something like that they can play into. They might even try to repackage and rename HDR. I don't know. That'd be the first time they've used it.
Right.
So here you go. let's call that something.
What would be the Nintendo-ified version of HDR? Like, what do you think would be what they call it?
It's hard to say, but they that's kind of what I'm picturing is something like that. You don't have to get weird with this. Just play it safe. You can get weird with the next system in 2032 or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Who knows? But
It's
I think
a
right
good
now we
console.
all just want an upgraded Switch. That's
Definitely.
all. We're fine.
Definitely. Damiani, any ideas for what this thing is going to have? Any features that you want on the Switch 2 beyond just
Sure.
gimmicks?
I mean, you call it a good feature, good gimmick. I mean, good online.
Oh, there.
Sure.
Okay, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. Okay,
There's the jab. There's my jab. All right. I mean, that would be awesome if they could
Yeah.
actually have like a comparable online, infrastructure. But who knows? They seem to always kind of lag behind in that, so I'm not really, I don't have high hopes for that. I'm kind of in my mind is kind of I'm kind of in agreement with everyone else here that I think it's going to be less gimmicky, more beefed up. The dual the clamshell dual screen thing is like interesting. I don't know if they'd actually go back to that, but maybe a way to like wirelessly send the screen signal, like screen sharing, might be something they might explore possibly. But I would settle just for having like a microphone and camera on the device again. Like maybe they could do some stuff with like AR, just like video stuff. Like because the one thing I want them to bring back, and this would all facilitate, they bring back Street Pass and all that stuff.
Please.
Like when I take my Switch with me,
More community stuff.
where is that?
Please.
Like yes, that's the biggest thing. It's like why did they leave that on the table? Bring it back.
Yes.
Like, it's such a missed opportunity.
Nintendo seems very, very concerned of players interacting with each other online to the point where you can't message each other. I feel like they saw what happened with the 3DS when they opened up certain things. They were like, nope, we're never doing that again. But maybe it's gotten to the point because, as they go along 10 years or so, the younger generation even works up through Nintendo, and they're having feedback in a lot of these things, and it's a connected world right now. So you feel like you want to do some of that. I also wonder, let's say they're more or less gonna work to improve the software side, the OS, that sort of thing, outside of we're gonna put a 3D screen or something on this. What do you think about the idea of them approaching achievements or an achievement system, because that works really well on other platforms? We have a lot of data on that. Sony's stuff leaked out anyway, but we have a lot of data showing that achievements, trophies. I used Apple Arcade recently. That has achievements, but there's data showing that actually works to retain consumers really, really well. They'll log in, they'll play games maybe they wouldn't have before, or they'll just stick around in your ecosystem to earn these different accolades.
Yeah.
And Nintendo, I think right now we need a refresh for achievement systems in general. And Nintendo, that's somewhere I'd like them to be weird about it. Just do something strange that maybe the rest of the industry looks at and goes, oh, we can build on this.
Yeah.
Whether it's, I don't know, they bring back Miiverse and they have some kind of stamp system or something that works into it, but it's all based on the accomplishments you have in your games. That to me,
there you go.
Plays into the
man,
the community side of things with Street Pass, and it seems like there's a lot of funny stuff they could do with that. So.
I will say, I think Miiverse can stay dead. I'm fine with Miiverse. I think staying in the grave.
Well, just as a concept.
Sure. As a concept, I think it was great. I think
the community stuff.
The one thing in terms of like achievements that I think about is I remember like back in the early days of like Michael Pachter talking about the idea of like a Wii HD, right? Like during the height of the Wii era. One of the things that kept coming up time and time again was like a stars system as achievements, right? Like utilizing the branding of the superstar from Mario anyway, and like having some cute thing. But I think one really cool thing they could potentially integrate achievements with, and you're already kind of seeing this with the eShop, where you register your games and you get little gold My Nintendo coins and silver coins, is potentially having achievements tied to that, right? Because like Nintendo has done on multiple occasions like achievements in game, right? Sakurai is like a master at this. This happens with all the Smash games, Kirby Air Ride, whatever, right? There's like the achievement walls, but they've never really done it on an OS level where they're like every game has achievements and all this stuff can be unlocked. But I almost wonder if like that would be their way around it, of having there potentially be some type of eShop bonus, where if you play enough of a certain game that you get coins that then you could use to redeem for other games. Like I think that idea would be really cool, right? It's something like
they're already doing that. Like they'll give you coins for playing a specific game on specific days.
Right, with the NSL stuff. They have the little...
They should expand that. Yeah. That's something like make it like daily weeklies. Just bring that to the entire Nintendo ecosystem with every game that they have, and that's how you do your retention.
To go beyond that, though, couldn't they tie it into their theme parks and their movies?
Yeah, 100%.
Any other media they want to do?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you already have the amiibo technology that's in there too. You go to the theme parks, you get little coins. Like, how sick would that be if you go spend a day at Nintendo World, or you buy a ticket to a Nintendo Pictures movie or something, and then it gets added to your account, and you get more and more of these coins built up, and then maybe you can use those coins not just to unlock stuff on like My Nintendo, like physical goods, but like actually unlock cool things like Brandon, you were talking about earlier, the Badge Arcade. I think Badge Arcade was so unbelievably sick when they added that to the 3DS, where you had all these cool little, icons icons that you could use on your main screen to customize your Switch. Themes, like, how do we not still, in the
I
year
know.
of our Lord 2024, not have themes on the Switch
There's
beyond
a-
basic black and basic white? It makes no sense. Give me back
There's
my
a video.
Elsa theme
There's a
for
video of me
3DS,
looking in the
please.
settings when the Switch came out, the day it came out, and it was like it's like light theme and dark theme. I was like, they'll add more.
No, it
Still
never
the
did.
same.
No way.
Exactly the same.
Like, mind
They could have given
too.
you a Mario movie theme for seeing the movie in like the first week or
Totally.
two or whatever.
Totally. They'll do that for the live action Zelda movie, maybe. We'll get Tom Holland Link as the first thing that happens when you log into your Switch 2. Or like, I mean, even if you look back to the 3DS, right? Like there were a lot of really cool third-party themes that were on there too. There were tons of Disney ones, a bunch of Sega ones. Pokemon did a bunch of them. There was the Slowpoke theme that they did. They tied into certain games as well. And I think that was a total missed opportunity during this generation and something that I honestly expected that we just never ended up getting. And I mean,
we're in a really big spot. Customization is everything to a
Yes.
user at this point. I mean, you turn on your PlayStation, you get it, the game comes out, you have a customized theme of like whatever is out. So
yeah.
they really need to focus on customization because users love that. I mean, Apple basically incorporated what jailbreakers were doing into their main stuff, so it's very customizable. And you know, the idea of even jailbreaking an iPhone goes away now because it's like I have this many options on an iPhone.
Yeah, you don't
So what's the
necessarily
purpose?
need to because you could just customize
Exactly.
it. You pull your little thing out, have it automatically read where your dog's head is so your timer can be behind the screen.
Exactly.
Like, no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
right.
things
I
like
know.
that.
I love that kind of stuff, and so I do hope to see some more of that too. But any customization feature you want, Stealth?
I think themes. That's the number one thing. That was the number one thing for me. I still can't believe it just never happened.
Yeah.
With all the big first party games, like there should have been one for every big first party game, and it just never happened. Achievements. I don't know. I feel like Nintendo's talked about that in the past, and they've just been cold on it for whatever reason. It just. I don't know. I feel like they feel like it dilutes the play. Like people play the games to get the achievements versus, you know, playing it for the fun of it. As weird as that sounds, I think that's what Nintendo thinks about. So I don't know if they're gonna do that, but like, yeah, I think like, you know, just increase the number of themes, give prizes. You know, like I was cleaning stuff out, and I found like these Zelda playing cards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That I got as just a reward, and just like, you know, increase all of that, make it, you know, I don't know, give incentive to just buy games.
Yeah. You know, you bringing that up again sort of leads me back to where we were a couple minutes ago talking about that stuff with the NSO dailies. How, like, they have the little bounties for, play, you know, NES Legend of Zelda today and get a couple extra bonus coins. Maybe that is their solution. Like, as we're talking through it, I kind of feel like that is a Nintendo kind of way to do achievements where you wouldn't necessarily get achievements the same way you get trophies, but it would be something where they encourage you on a weekly basis to play 3 or 4 certain games, whatever they feel like promoting, or like they work together with a third party that's releasing something, and then that's how you build up like your gamer score or whatever, right? As you do these little daily tasks, as opposed to something that makes you, you know, need to get every item in Mario RPG or like collect every Korok seed in Tears of the Kingdom. Because then I think that's what leads into sort of the tedium that you were talking about that they kind of want to avoid. Well, yeah. All right, right on. Any other talk on achievements or features that you guys want to see? Brandon,
Bring back. Oh, okay.
No, go ahead. No, Philly, go ahead.
Okay. I was saying I want my save data from a game to be on the new device. I don't want to lose my save. I want that to be compatible via the online, because if that doesn't happen, that's going to be really upsetting. If I see my Pokemon no longer in 1 FPS and now a beautiful FPS, but then I have to start from scratch, that's going to be horrible for me.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that would have to come with the Nintendo account stuff, right? As we already have the
I
save
hope
data
so.
cloud.
There's just some
We're
things
paying
you think
for it.
that are going to be
Yeah,
common
literally,
sense
we're
that don't
paying for
happen.
it.
So
Exactly.
We're paying for it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's so long as we get backwards compatibility, I feel like the save data cloud
data,
compatibility is a sure thing. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think this is going to be called then? I guess that's the next big question is this just Switch 2? Are they going to go with a super branding, an advanced branding, something completely different? Switch U? Probably not. But any ideas? Taking bets?
Switch Plus.
Switch Plus. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's going to be. I just don't think it's going to be Switch 2. I feel like that's just too PlayStation for Nintendo. It's going to have some kind of subtitle, some kind of moniker.
I think it's going to
Super-
depend entirely on how they want to position the console compared to the Switch. Is this one ecosystem? Is this a new ecosystem that shares an ecosystem? Like, is it PS4 to PS5, or is this Xbox to Xbox Series? Like, that's what I want to know.
Yeah, that is a good question. I feel like the Switch part of the name has to stay. I think that's the one big thing, is I think if it is an iteration, I know they had the issue with the Wii to the Wii U, but I really feel like that was just more of a marketing thing of like showing the tablet. Like at the time I was working as a brand ambassador, like not like what I'm doing now, obviously doing YouTube stuff, but like one of the people who was going as like a product demonstrator and going to stores. And that was during the holiday of the Wii U that I was working, and there were so many people coming into GameStop or Walmart or whatever being like, how can I buy this tablet thing for my Wii? And I'm like, well, actually it's its own new system. And they're like, okay, but like if I buy it, it's gonna work with the old system. I'm like, no, it's its own thing. You gotta, you know. And so I think at least that issue is not going to come with the Switch 2, but I still think there's a little bit of consumer confusion you could avoid by not having the Switch name. But again, I think the branding of Switch itself is just too strong.
So there's like the Super Nintendo Switch. That's what people talk about, like having a super name in there.
Yeah.
I have the Nintendo Switch. That's the Switch with 2 eyes.
The Switch?
So in the middle.
Bring back the Wii U branding. Now it works with your Wiimotes as well. You can use your Wiimotes as Joy-Cons. There you go.
I've been
Break out
pushing
those little
Nintendo
Wiimotes.
Switch D4 for a few years now.
Nintendo Switch D4. It's
Yeah.
actually amazing. I love that. Yeah, I like the Switch Advance, honestly, as a branding too. I think would be really cool. You know, going back to the roots of something from like the Game Boy to the Game Boy Advance. Considering the fact that like I think a big reason why the Switch was a success was due to the fact that it was also a handheld. I think if they iterated on it like that, where you only have one system, it's not like they're making a handheld and a console anymore, doing something that's, you know, very clearly saying this is the next thing, harkening back for people like us who grew up during like the Game Boy Advance generation and maybe having some sort of tie there. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like Switch 2 is too like expected and not Nintendo,
Yeah.
even though it's probably the easiest and safest thing, considering all the reports seem like it might be going the safe direction. So
Yeah.
I would say this is the most likely system to have a number in it and be called Switch 2. I kind of would be okay with them calling it New Switch, even though they've kind of saved that for like refreshes in the existing generation. So there might be a little confusion there, but at least it says new. So it's like it is a literal new Switch. So like, you know, you're buying a new Switch.
Yeah.
I think like whatever it's called, it's gonna just be like one word before or after. It's not gonna be too, you know, verbose, and it's definitely gonna have Switch in it. And I think I'm with you. Like there won't really be any confusion. I think the one thing you might see a little bit of is like older people, parents or something, not understanding why maybe it doesn't work in the old dock. Like maybe it doesn't work in the old dock. So be like, oh, why isn't the Switch 2 charging in the old dock? It's like, you gotta have to use the new one, but like they're probably gonna include the new dock with it. So I mean, you're not gonna really have that issue. But yeah, but if it has something more gimmicky, like a dual screen or something like Switch DS or something like that, it could just be as simple as something like that. Yeah.
Switch DS would honestly be kind of fire, and that would also be a great way to like you have the DS branding and the Switch branding, you just chuck them together like they're two most successful systems of all time. They're like, you like a Switch, you like a DS, here's a Switch DS, enjoy it, play all your DS games on an SO. Yeah, right. That would be
I'm also like the name Switch Forward. I've heard that kind of
Switch
thrown
Forward.
around.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I like that. It's got a little edge to it. I'm digging it. I think logo-wise, they could do something really funny if they were just going to call it Switch 2, to just take like the two Joy-Cons that are already on the top of the logo and just move them from the top of the Joy-Con to the right side of where it says Switch, and it's like, now it's the Switch 2, and it's Roman numeral with two Joy-Cons. I don't know. It'd be weird. But all right, well, we talked features, we talked names. Now I kind of want to talk pricing. Like, we also kind of touched on release dates a little bit earlier, but pricing-wise, like, what are you guys feeling? Because to me, I think you don't go above $399.99. I think that is the sweet spot. There's nothing above that. I think $459.99 or something is almost too much for this kind of system, and depending on what the specs of this thing are going to be, I can't imagine it's going to be, PS5 level. So I think we're probably not going to get it above that, but any other ideas?
Yeah, I think it's going to be $399. And also probably Pokemon Company down the road when there's a specific handheld model, they're going to demand it to be like $199.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't think you can go above $399 for the overall, and then you can go lower when you have like your handheld specific model, like the Lite.
Sure.
We're in a different world now too, where Nintendo Switch isn't your only like high-powered handheld. We've got several of those coming out now. We have Steam OLED and all that. They're always going to be the budget console, and that's more important now than I think ever.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring that up, because not to track the conversation too much, but I almost feel like that's Xbox's issue, right? Is with like their branding issues, or they're not really selling as much compared to like the PlayStation. I've always kind of felt that Xbox should have leaned more into the idea that like we are the best bang for your buck, right? Like you have Game Pass, you have all these other great things that are available on the system, and yet like they're trying to compete in that space while also being the premium system, and it almost doesn't work because you're splitting your audience. You know, then like all the premium people we're going to want to get a PS5, all the budget people are going to want to get a Switch. And so you're just sort of like in this weird middle ground where they're doing great things, right? There's lots of great games on Game Pass, and it's a really good deal, probably one of the best deals in the industry. But I almost feel like having that split has hurt them in the long run. And I don't see Nintendo doing anything like that until, like you said, Stealth, they end up doing like a light version or whatever of the system when Pokemon Company demands it.
I do think 400 is the price, even though if you go from like 2017 to 2024, $300 is worth almost $400 now with the amount of inflation that took place. And that, of course, gets factored into even shipping and other things on top of it. But I feel like the place they'll cut costs is probably that OLED screen. It'll just be an LCD. And they'll be able to get it in at 400 with a dock. I did play around with the idea of them separating the two and not including the dock, and you have to buy that separately. But that just, to me, throws the messaging out of whack for what they're trying to do. Put it all in one box and send it out that way. But they also sold a 3DS back in the day without a charger, so they could do whatever, I guess. But
they did do a split with the Wii U generation, right? With the deluxe version and the basic version or something. So, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility completely for them to do like a version with a dock, and a version without it.
I've played around with the idea of them doing a premium version with an OLED, but again, I think that's something they would approach years into the generation as like a new Switch 2 or something. So I feel like 400, they cut costs on things like the screen, maybe the amount of storage, and things people won't see internally, whether it's like copper around the heatsink, things like that. And they ship it at 400 and call it a day. But that'd be the most expensive system Nintendo shipped, but it's money's different now. It's not worth as much. So they the OLED, they actually make less money on the OLED than they do on the red box Switch.
Really?
So even though it's $350, they make less money on it. So.
I think positioning it at $400 too allows them to not have to drop the prices of the models that currently exist, because I don't think they're going to.
Yeah. That was something I was going to bring up a little bit later on, too, is like if the release date for this thing is actually holiday season, right? Like, do they eat into their sales? Do they do a price drop? Do they keep them the same way? Like, what exactly is going to be the deal moving into holiday 2024? Because, I mean, realistically, with as huge of an install base as Switch has, they're going to keep making Switch games for like the next 2-3 years, I'm assuming. They're not going away. And
do you think they consolidate their old library of systems, though? Because they have a number of them. They have a Switch Lite, they have a Redbox Switch, they have an OLED.
Yeah.
I feel like you eliminate 2 of those, and you have one there and then one, and then you introduce a new one. Maybe like remember when we got the Switch, and then one night Nintendo showed up and was like, here's a 2DS, like the new 2DS. And it was weird because it made no sense to any of us, but it sold well. I mean, people liked it. Maybe they show up with a different kind of Switch Lite system and put it next to the OLED, and that's it. And then you have this new system coming into play. So they still just have 3. It seems weird if they go 4 SKUs and 3 of them are last gen.
Yeah, right.
It just seems crowded or backloaded then.
I do wonder, you brought up Switch Lite, that makes me sort of think back to like the GameCube era, right? Where we had panic button Nintendo doing like the $99 bundles at Target where you would get like...
Well, there's rumors that they're revising the Switch Lite in some way.
See,
so I'm not really sure what that would look like.
If you have a $99 Switch Lite on the market, the same holiday season that they launch like a premium system and you almost back off a little bit of the red box and you back off a little bit of the OLED, like I think that would be a really interesting way to go about it, because then little kids who again don't necessarily need to play like whatever the newest high-tech thing is would have a fun little stocking stuffer and have it like at a reasonable cost, where still like maybe $300 or $250 or whatever. What's Switch Lite at right now? $199. Like if that's still out of the budget of some families, you drop it to $99. Maybe bundle in Mario Kart or something. Like sort of boost those sales just a little bit more for their financial sheets, where they're like, look at all these extra copies of Mario Kart we sold, and it's just bundled on the Switch Lite or something. Would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they did a budget system that
Yeah.
got introduced and they discontinue something out of that 3 system
Yeah.
lineup we have now.
Because I do think they want the messaging that will come from the Switch becoming the #1 best-selling system of all time, right? Like, because the financials are coming out. Like, Stealth, I'm going to direct to you because I know you follow this stuff a lot. Like, what are the current sales of the Switch at, and what are you expecting with that upcoming financials?
I mean, I think Switch was at 132 million as of September. Going to be real close to 140 million, you know, as of after the holiday season. So we're getting, you know, close to that like legendary 150 million that only the PS2 and the Nintendo DS got to, without a price drop, which is crazy. So yeah, I do feel like Nintendo wants to go for it. At least beat the Nintendo DS.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so we're getting close. I mean, it's already the 3rd best-selling system of all time. All that's left is to like hit that 150 plateau.
Yeah, I do think they're gonna try. I really do. I think the story is too good amidst like everything that's going on right now with Nintendo Pictures and all their other extra things. I just think to have that extra little check mark on their financial sheet of being like, by the way, we are the best-selling system of all time. Just putting that out there would be kind of cool. Yeah. Any other thoughts on price point before we move on to, I think, what's probably going to be the biggest discussion of this entire Mega Switch 2 discussion, which is what games are going to be on this thing. Yeah. Go ahead, Damiani.
I'll just say that like I do think like 400's like the safe bet, and I really don't think they're going to do anything that's going to like split the SKU. Like as you said, like they did do like a different thing with Wii U when it launched, but that was storage space. So like that's, for me, that's a big question, what they're going to be doing for internal storage. I mean, I'm on my hands and knees praying for, you know, solid state or something better so that like we can get those sweet fast load times that I've been spoiled with like on the modern consoles. And like every time I play a Switch game, like please have faster loading when we get to the next one. Like that's probably my most important feature I want from the next system is like fast loading, please. So if they do maybe 2 storage sizes for the SKU, like maybe 1 terabyte or whatever they're gonna do in a smaller one, and then phase out one of those after a certain amount of time, like they did with the Wii. Whichever one kind of like takes off, they just like roll into that one and just put all their resources. But the smart money is on keep it simple, keep it safe. Like supply chain stuff has improved, but you don't know if those bottlenecks ever come back. The more complicated your product is, the more parts that are harder to source, the more SKUs you have, the more difficult it is. You don't want to risk doing something to shoot yourself in the foot with the momentum they have. Just keep it simple. So I do think they'll just stay at that 400 price point in 1 SKU.
Right on.
Do we think Nintendo first-party games are gonna make the full jump to $70?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Probably. Yeah, I think it's gonna happen.
Case by case basis. Case by case basis.
After Tears of the Kingdom, I knew it's coming.
Yeah. I think Tears of the Kingdom was the litmus test, and seeing how well that game sold, they're like, okay, we're in now.
We're good to go. Time to rack up the sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
exactly.
Remakes, remasters probably won't get the full $70 price. They'll be like $10 to maybe $20 cheaper, but all their games will probably be in like the $50 to $70 range, with the first party ones all being $70.
Yeah. How much? I'm just curious because I did not play it. It's one of the few that I didn't play. How much was the new WarioWare? The one that just came out.
Oh, it was like 40, right? Or 40. It was 50, not full. Was it 50? Yeah, it was not full price. Yeah, it was like $10 less.
So we'll see. I mean, maybe they'll still have those kind of games moving on to the next system. Of course they will, right? They always do. But I'd rather pay $50 for Clubhouse games than I would that new WarioWare. So,
ouch.
On the topic
that hurts
of
me.
games, though. On the topic of games, no, I know you're wearing the Mario shirt, Brandon. So I have to direct to you first, right? Are we getting a new 3D Mario at launch. Is that the Switch 2's killer app? It's a 3D Mario.
What else do you release? That's my question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, you got Mario Kart.
Mario Kart.
You have a deluxe edition of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate that they could potentially do.
We're talking Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Plus, right?
Right,
Oh my
Mario
God.
Kart 8 Deluxe
it's
Plus. Right,
Mario
right.
Kart
Booster
8.
Course Pass too.
I already have a trademark on this. It's Mario Kart 8, the reveal, and it just turns sideways. And it's Mario Kart Infinite.
Infinite.
Oh my God.
That's actually, you joke, but that does bring up an interesting potential talking point of them maybe moving one of their big games to like a live service type deal. Right, obviously, as you have so many, like a lot of games recently that have been live service games that have been floundering, but I almost wonder if they make that transition with a big property, like have it where it's free to download on Switch 2 launch day, and they iterate upon it with like new characters, new costumes, new whatever. Like,
I heard free and then was fell out of their chair.
yeah, exactly. They're
I
like
don't know about the
you know.
free
Yeah.
part, but everything else you're saying, I think, is prime for Mario Kart. Why they ramp down,
yeah.
they winded down Mario Kart Tour, like all the Mario Kart properties wind or either wound down or are winding down.
Right.
And it's because they probably are going to fold all of those concepts, all those payment structures, all that monetization into this next big Mario Kart, and it'll be on Switch 2, and I think you'll be able to play it on other things. I think it will have a mobile component as well because they're going to have all those monetization mechanisms are going to be present there, and they're going to go full force on that. And it's even if it's not like full blown game as a service, it is going to be this generation. They're going to support it for the entire generation. Like I think if there's any of their games that are primed to maybe be a live service or be fully supported for a long period of time, it is Mario Kart. I think the history has shown it's there. It's their biggest selling game by like not even close.
Yeah.
It's like almost into the same realm of like discussion as like not quite, but it's like in that rare space between Grand Theft Auto tier and everyone else. It's like in that echelon just below like that, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's at every direct is a Mario Kart.
Yeah.
For the past-
In 4 months, right? It'll be 10 years since the last Mario Kart released.
Oh,
Wow.
Man, you know
Wow.
when you bring it
Great
up like
live service
that,
game. It worked out well.
yeah.
yeah.
I almost wonder if that is their solution for Smash Brothers, right? Because Smash is obviously massive, and Sakurai has said on multiple occasions with Smash Brothers Ultimate that like he doesn't know how they would move on from here, right? Like he doesn't know one if anyone else would be able to take over for him to make a new Smash Brothers game, but also two, like you can't go back. You add Sora and Sephiroth and all these other characters, like you can't go back unless you fully reboot. You have to fully reboot, cut half the roster, like do something. And I almost wonder if Smash becomes what Mario Kart Deluxe was this generation, right? That Smash maybe does not get a full new Smash game, and we get Smash Ultimate Deluxe, and throughout the lifespan of the system, we get challenger packs, and we get new characters to promote their new games, you know, new third-party things to cross-promote, like something along those lines, because then that way Sakurai could make something else as opposed to just making Smash Brothers, but he already has that whole team at Bandai Namco that's working on stuff. There's rumors that Bandai is well, no, in fact, it's not a rumor, it's confirmed. They have 2 teams internally that are working solely on Nintendo properties. I would not be shocked if one of those is Smash Brothers, and the pieces are already moving for that, where within the first like 6 months of Switch 2, we get whatever Smash Ultimate Deluxe is, and that carries on throughout the lifespan of the system in the same way that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did.
I do think that needs to be within year one, because that's just going to be too impactful to the conversation until it happens otherwise. And we know that a lot of Nintendo first-party games that have come out in this generation are games that they just sat on because they were done.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the first year and a half of Switch 2 has a lot of games like that. Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers. Go back to Mario, the next 3D game. I don't know if that would be a launch title, but I'd be shocked if it wasn't year one.
Oh, year one. I think we're all in agreement that's a year one game. Like whatever the next big Mario platformer is, right, is within the first
3D?
year.
You mean 3D platformer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to hope it's like some kind of blueprint that builds upon Bowser's Fury.
Bowser's Fury.
Concept.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw the video Kit and Krista did recently, but they were talking about the idea of like a Mario and Donkey Kong, almost like buddy cop kind of game. I think would be sick, right? I mean, you have the precedent for it in the Mario movie where Donkey Kong was utilizing the Fire Flower and stuff. I think go full force with it. There were those rumors like, 4 or 5 years ago that the team that made Odyssey was working on a 3D Donkey Kong. Like, maybe they were. Maybe that is what it is. Maybe there's something where they are working on Donkey Kong, but Donkey Kong is actually Mario. And you kill two birds with one stone and you have that be the big game.
Yeah. I could see that 3D Mario game. Like, that's the thing. You have multiple playable characters, and Donkey Kong would make sense in there. And
totally.
They need to make stronger theming. Obviously, there's plenty of Mario Kingdoms, but you throw in like Donkey Kong, which, you said in the movie it was like one of the worlds that they already introduced. I do think they'll keep those separate. Like, they're not literally going to like incorporate the movie into the game. I think they want to keep those properties separate, but that I think it's already established, and having a Donkey Kong Island, DK Island like environment would be totally fine in that game. And maybe some others, who else they could throw in there and make that their big new take on 3D platforming. They love to do those big revolutionary titles each generation. So it's definitely not going to be just Odyssey 2. It's going to be something completely different.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, DK being there would make a lot of sense. They're bolstering the IP right now. Like, he was in the movie as a major character. They're adding the whole theme park area as the second like major IP behind Mario being Donkey Kong. That says a lot to me. Like, they're putting their money into DK, so something has to be coming.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the big reason why I think it's probably in a Mario game and not a standalone thing, is the idea that, like, Nintendo World came out in Japan. Within the year of Nintendo World coming out, we got the Mario movie, right? Nintendo World came to California. What happened last year? Mario Wonder. Like, I think it's the same type of thing. I think they're going to want, within a year span of that expansion happening, some type of Donkey Kong property that they can point to that isn't just, hey, by the way, you can play Tropical Freeze on your Switch too now. I think it's got to be something new. I want to specifically direct this conversation to one of you, though, and that is Philly. Because, Philly, you are known now as like a Pokemon and Zelda kind of guy. So I'm wondering, do you think we are getting Pokemon and Zelda in the first year?
I think so, for sure. We're definitely getting a Pokemon's been ramping up the amount of games that have been coming out. I mean, it was just crazy seeing Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then 2 months later, Legends Arceus, like, right, boom, boom. I'm like, what is going on here? And then the next year, right after that, we get, instead of getting the double game release, now we got Scarlet and Violet. Then we had the 2 DLCs very close together. It was September, I think, and just December.
And we're getting the epilogue literally like this weekend.
Epilogue's coming out.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the close of Scarlet and Violet. It's done after that. Following up by that, I don't know, they dropped Unova stuff in that game that was taking place in Unova. Gen 5 is known to need a remake very soon. They've been teasing a lot of stuff there, so I don't know if they're gonna go with the route of, hey, here's a cute chibi remake, followed up by, in the next 2-3 months, your Legends Arceus style but black and white game.
Yeah, I feel like. Go ahead.
That makes me wonder what's going to happen for Pokemon Day this year, because we're
Pokemon Day is going to be big.
Yeah. I think they're announcing a game like a major Switch game on Pokemon Day.
Pay attention to the graphics and FPS that day, everyone. That's going to be our big determination for what that's possibly running on.
Man, I don't know why they don't do this. I want them, and Stealth, you already know what I'm going to say, because I know you're the other big one in the call that loves these games. I am a sucker for HD 2D. All right, I'm a sucker. You do any type of HD 2D game, I will slurp that milkshake up, no problem. I'm telling you.
Octopath.
Dude, there has never been a Pokemon generation that would work better as a 2D HD game than Gen 5. There would simply not be one. And I think if you want to do something to differentiate a Pokemon game on the Switch still, because, like, let's face it, if there does get a game announced at Pokemon Day and it is like a major Gen 5 remake or something, that's going to be on Switch. Like, there's no way if it comes out this year it's not on Switch. It's going to be, or a cross game, right? It's like a Switch 2 type deal alongside what we were talking about with Metroid Prime. I feel like that would be a good way to differentiate it. But part of me is also kind of on the boat that maybe they do a Let's Go again. Maybe they do like an Arceus type game, right? They do a Legends game in Unova. There's a lot of stuff there with QREM and the Ancient Dragon and the War and everything that they could easily pull from that. I don't know. Like, we're kind of in unprecedented territory right now with Pokemon as a franchise, right? Where we've had so many games on this one system, and we're sort of moving into that part of the generation in which we would get another remake or we would get another side game. But Switch 2 isn't out yet. It's not announced. So it's like, well, what do you do?
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of been said, Ishihara, is doubtful about the Switch before launch. Now Pokemon Company has sold like 100 million units of software on Switch. I think they're going to be ready for Switch 2 a lot sooner than maybe they were originally when they weren't so sure about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Pokemon then seems assured within the first year. I think we're all kind of in agreement then.
Guaranteed.
Pokemon? Yeah. Okay. So
You need it to
Pokemon.
be
Oh
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So then the other question then is Zelda, right? Because we just had Tears of the Kingdom. There's, again, that rumor about the souped up version of Breath of the Wild running on this thing, or Tears of the Kingdom. Do we get another new Zelda anytime soon, or do we get a remake? Because I want to bring this little tidbit up. I'm sure most of you in call already know this, but we are now further away from the release of Ocarina of Time 3D than Ocarina of Time 3D was to the original Ocarina of Time. Do we get Ocarina of Time remake on Switch 2 in potentially Breath of the Wild engine or something? Like, how are we feeling about this?
I think
I'd
we
just
need to
try,
follow
man.
up with that Wii U demo of Twilight Princess first. Let's get that tech demo out there first on the Switch. They showed that off and it was dead silent after that.
Yeah, never showed that again. It was unfortunate because it was really pretty. But
It looked amazing.
Yeah.
I think realistically speaking, we get something from Grezzo.
Oracles.
They had a mobile game release in
Yeah.
2023. The Oracles would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
I wouldn't even be surprised if Nintendo handed them the keys and let them make something a little more substantial. Smaller scale, obviously,
Yeah.
but more substantial than they have.
I mean, they've shown that they're not opposed to that with the Zelda franchise with the Cadence game, right? Like, you had technically a Zelda game with Cadence of Hyrule, and that was a whole big deal. And they've
They
been
could
talking
make a
about
Four
recently,
Swords or something like that, you know?
Dude, Grezzo made Four Swords Adventure 2 or something would be sick. I would love that. Yeah, especially now that you can't play Triforce Heroes online anymore. So
It would
Yeah.
have to be. It would have to be sent to another studio though, because Anuma said the Zelda team wants to move forward with like the open air type Zelda. They understand the nostalgia for old Zelda, but their team will not be working on those anytime soon. So yeah, your best bet is like Grezzo either taking one of the existing games and updating them, whether it's Oracles, Minish Cap, and a Link's Awakening 2019 style, whether they're trusted to make an original new type of traditional Zelda, or if they work with another independent company, an indie company, to maybe create another offshoot Zelda game. But I would personally prefer some of like the locked games to be set free, like the 3DS, Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time 3D.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not going to get any new versions of those games ever, like a true remake, like Ocarina of Time, one of the like most revered games of all time, and all these other revered games are getting full-blown remakes or reimaginings. It's like Ocarina still sits, there's just the 3D update. Set those free at least and bring those to Switch 2, make those free. I know a lot of people want Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD to be off Wii U so they can play them on, a little bit more traditionally on their current systems. But yeah, it's going to be a long time for that new 3D, like that big Zelda, but they need to fill in the time between those long releases. And I hope they have a more, well thought out plan of attack for that, balancing the re-releases, remakes, and hopefully exploring letting a studio like Grezzo or someone else make more traditional style, even if it's top-down 2D, Ocarina style, whatever it is give us more of those old style Zeldas, because they might not sell Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild numbers with how well Switch is. They will definitely sell probably Ocarina numbers, I will guarantee. They will sell 5 to 10 million range easily.
I do almost wonder though. Yeah, there you go, dude. A Capcom developed Zelda game again would be fantastic. I want that, please. I
will worry.
Yeah, there you go. No, I do almost wonder though if Ocarina is almost like a panic button type situation, right? Where it's like you don't push the button until you absolutely need to. Whereas like you were mentioning Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD 2, and like those have been done for Switch, like the worst kept secret in the world. Everybody knows, like those games are somewhere in a vault for Switch. They're gonna come out eventually, and I do almost wonder if maybe that's like their holiday release, is they have it where those drop on Switch at some point. Or maybe, I mean, maybe not even holiday, maybe like spring, maybe within the February Direct or whatever. They're like, by the way, you're finally gonna be able to get Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, and like they drop all of these games. Exactly, and then you can play those on the new Switch, right? You have then pretty much all of the Zelda games, assuming backwards compatibility is a thing, would then be available day one if it's backwards compatible and has the NSO stuff. You could literally play the entire library of Zelda. It would be huge.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room here.
Metroid?
Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
By the way, at the end of this month, okay, it'll be 5 years since they announced on it did a YouTube video that it was being rebooted and handed off to Retro Studios. 5 years. Is this game now a launch title for the next system? Is that what's going to happen?
I thoroughly believe it is cross-release. I think that we're looking at a not Tears of the Kingdom, a Breath of the Wild type situation, a Twilight Princess type situation, because I don't think, while I think like Zelda something will be there within the first year, I think launch day we're not gonna get a new Zelda on this thing. I don't think it's feasible with what we know. Even if it was a Grezzo game, I think it's too close to Tears of the Kingdom for them to do that. Whereas I think Metroid perfectly sort of hits that hardcore market if you pair it with something that's more mainstream, right? If you have like a Mario Kart there day one, or a Mario, or a Smash Brothers Deluxe or whatever, and you have that as like the mainstream game, and then you have for the hardcore a cross-system release for Switch and Switch 2 for Metroid alongside like a really big, well-known third-party game, like that's really all you need. I don't think they need much more to sell this thing. And I think Metroid, especially in recent years, has been doing better, right? Dread sold very well. Prime Remastered, I think, did pretty decently too. People obviously loved that game, was acclaimed. So I think, like, again, this is a good opportunity. You have a new system, you launch with a Metroid. I don't think they've ever done that before, right? There's been Metroid games within launch year. We had Fusion with Game Boy Advance, but
Hunters, right?
Oh, Hunters,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
But even then, that wasn't like a full numbered big mainline Metroid game. I think you have like, this is the Samus opportunity to shine, right? If you want the breakout moment for this franchise, the same way that like Breath of the Wild was for Zelda, you do it again, try to strike lightning twice, and you do it with Metroid.
Yeah, you have to release Metroid Prime 4 on Switch after all the waiting fans have had to not do it. That's going to be a bad PR thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be cross. Maybe the Switch 2 has enhancements to it to make it more enticing. I could see that, but you have to release it. You can't just like say screw you to all those Switch owners who've been waiting for it for 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, you could... We were talking about the thing earlier with like backwards compatibility and then cross releases and potentially downloading files or something. I wonder if the push is you release that game on Switch, right? The same day that Switch 2 comes out. And again, they market it where it's like it plays better on the new Switch. Like you could play it on the old one, but it plays better. And then they pair that with something that is, again, more mainstream, something like a Mario or a Mario Kart or whatever, and have that be the big Switch 2 exclusive game, right? You have a killer app there, but you also have something for the hardcore that they're obviously going to want to play on the new system.
So my pitch for it being a launch title for the next system.
Yeah.
It will cross-gen. It'll be on the old Switch and the new one. Is if we're to believe that this is just a better version than the Switch we have now, just a better system, then one of the best ways to show that is graphically. But hey, look how much better this looks. And if you go back for Retro Studios, they know what they're doing when it comes to the technical side. They got a lot out of the GameCube. They got a lot out of the Wii, like way more than they should have. They did pretty with the Wii U. You know, Tropical Freeze, it's a good-looking game. It's a good-looking 2D game. But obviously, people look at Metroid and go, okay, that's incredibly impressive for the GameCube. And then we see remastered, very impressive for the Switch.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, if you go to Retro, which this was in 2019 when they made that announcement, they probably handed it off months before. They didn't start that up thinking, okay, this is going to be ready in 2022 if they had to fully reboot it, because apparently it didn't work between Nintendo and people think Bandai Namco or something. I think at that point, they immediately thought, okay, let's push this for not necessarily the next system, but there was a Switch refresh that was in the works that got pulled back. And I feel like they were developing Metroid with that in mind. And then it was like, well, no, let's just push it to the next system and also release it on the current Switch because we can do it without ray tracing. We can push the frame rate down. We can play around with the resolution whenever we have to. But I feel like Retro shows up with like a showpiece to show off. And that's one of the best ways Nintendo markets this thing. Here's Samus with full ray tracing, 4K, the whole deal. And pick it up with the new Switch.
So then on that topic, to sort of build upon that, do you think the reveal of the game, the first actual gameplay that we see of it, will be Switch 2 gameplay? Or do you think we see a trailer in like the February Direct? They don't even bring up Switch 2 at all. They're just like, here's Metroid Prime 4, and then come a big, launch blowout in summer or like even as early as March, right? They showcase, oh, by the way, that game we just announced last month in this Direct? This is what it looks like on the new system. Like, do you think we're actually going to see it running on Switch 2 hardware the first time we see it? Or do you think it's going to be the Switch version in like a Direct?
They could give us just a cinematic and say it's the year, it's 2024 now, and everyone will be like, okay, finally. But that's enough for Metroid fans to just know that it still exists. I mean, they mention it in passing, and we're still working on the other Metroid. It's coming, don't worry. But if they show up with something, just give a setting for the narrative, like, okay, what's going on with Samus, and then they have the year 2024.
Yeah,
I think that'd be enough. And then they show up maybe March, maybe over the summer. Here it is, and Samus pops out of the ship and ray tracing. They do the 4K slide that happens, and all that stuff. And then they just push to the holidays with that.
I like it.
Now let's just begin after that.
Exactly. I'm feeling pretty good though that within this year we're going to be having a Metroid game in our hands, like a brand new big Metroid game. Damiani's going, I don't think so.
I'm going to be the dissenter here.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to be the dissenter.
Let's hear it.
I just don't think it's going to be ready yet. I think it's taking longer than expected. I actually will not be shocked. I know the popular theory is that it'll be cross-gen, and I think that makes a very good argument, and I would not be shocked if it ends up being cross-gen, but I think it might end up just being on Switch 2 exclusive, and it's going to be 2025. And I think there will be some people who are upset, but I think Nintendo's going to bank that, oh, Switch 2's been out for a while, people have got it, we have all these great games on here, we let you bring all your old games forward, we did all the things you wanted, and now you'll be ask for forgiveness. It's better to do the wrong thing and ask for forgiveness after. They're going to do that with Metroid Prime 4. And I think it's simply because, I think we will see it this year, but they cannot. I think they truly cannot show it off until Switch 2 has been unveiled or it's in the Switch 2 showcase. Because I think they want to show it off only running on Switch 2 because they want to because Metroid Prime series is associated with the technical wizardry, technical showpiece. I think it needs to be the one game that wows people visually of anything they show.
That's 120 frames.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine during the showcase if they're like, okay, and they bring out Retro? That's just a moment from not hearing about from them in so long.
Yeah.
And then having them have this big reintroduction to the Nintendo audience.
Yeah. That would be interesting. I mean, I do think they would get so much pushback, though. I do feel specifically with this one game, if it was not a Switch release, they would need to do something along the lines of the 3DS. Yeah, right. Like the 3DS Ambassador Program or whatever, where you got the Game Boy games on there. They do something like that where, okay, here you go. Here's the DS games. Maybe that's your Metroid Prime Hunters, right? Maybe they go, hey, look, sorry, Metroid Prime 4 is only on Switch 2. We're going to do an Ambassador Program where you play all the DS games, and Metroid Prime Hunters is one of them. I don't know. I don't see a world in which that happens, though. I don't know.
Maybe Prime 2 remaster, they have that in the works too, or it's done and ready to go. They just go through the whole trilogy, and that's what they're gonna release in between now and then. They want you at least. I think at least 2 will come out, but maybe 3. And they're here they all are. They're on Switch as well. So you got the Prime trilogy remastered on Switch. Here's something from Metroid. A lot of Metroid here. But 4 is unfortunately going to be locked to Switch 2. Could be the end of that trail there. I mean, they could also do something else with Metroid. I mean, we could have another Dread follow-up, another side-scrolling Metroid. Yeah, that type. We can have that. I mean, I would love to see them maybe revisit Super Metroid and do something with that. I mean, after we saw what they just did with Super Mario RPG, preserving that visual look but making it feel so updated and fresh. I'd love to see something with like Super Metroid, like do something with that. That would be fantastic.
Don't get my hopes up, man.
I know that's probably not happening,
Super
but
Metroid, like those two,
you can
Super
dream.
Metroid and Chrono Trigger are the two for me that like I've screamed a lot over video games over the 10 years I've been making YouTube videos. Right, I don't know if I would survive a Super Metroid or a Chrono Trigger. I really don't.
I think I'm in agreement with Damiani. I don't think this game's coming out in 2024.
Wow. Okay, dude, that's okay.
I don't know. There's something in my heart that's telling me that there's something wrong with this game right now, and we're still ironing those issues out. That said, I think when you announce the platform, if they do something similar to the 2017 Switch presentation, Metroid Prime 4 will be there.
Oh, yeah.
We might not see it, but they will remind us that that game exists.
Yeah. I do wonder, that's a good question, right? Like, if we think there's going to be some type of big summer thing, where with E3 gone and Jeff's got the Summer Games Fest and everything, I do think that would be a good opportunity for Nintendo to be like, look, we are doing our own thing. Here you go. Remember that Switch presentation you all loved, January 2017? We're doing the same thing this summer, and then bam, like, just unveil everything. Whatever Monolith Soft is working on, we know that. Like, there's still also a lot of huge third-party games that are coming to Switch that we still have not yet seen. The next mainline Dragon Quest, the HD 2D Dragon Quest, whatever is going on with both of those games, I'm assuming will both still be on Switch. Like, they've already said that.
I think they're positioning Dragon Quest 12 because especially like the Switch event took place in Japan. We were kind of looking at it from an outsider perspective with translators and things like that. I think Dragon Quest 12 is going to be there, potentially Monster Hunter. And Roger, you said this a long time ago, and I've thought about it ever since.
Star Fox Grand Prix? Are we getting Star Fox Grand Prix? Is it happening?
No, not this time. but maybe like Elden Ring is like the new kind of Skyrim, where that's like the big third-party game that you didn't think was going to come to a Nintendo platform. That's going to come to it. And you've said that, and I've thought about it ever since.
Yes, I am in 110% agreement with you. I think the big third-party game they used to showcase for the Switch, something that is from the prior generation, obviously it was running on PS4 and stuff, you could obviously do that on Switch too, I would hope, is you show Elden Ring, and you show, hey, maybe there's like a Zelda tunic that you can get, or like you fight Ganon. Like if it was an exclusive Elden Ring Ganon boss or something would be fire. And I know people would absolutely lose their minds, and that could maybe potentially be the quote-unquote filler for whatever the Zelda game would be, right? Like if you want something for the Zelda crowd, if you have Zelda content in a new version of Elden Ring, I mean, I do find it interesting that we have not yet seen the DLC for Elden Ring yet. It has not been that was something I thought for sure was going to be at the Game Awards, and then like they came and went and we didn't get it. I'm almost wondering if that ends up being a thing that releases same time on the Switch 2, where like you get Elden Ring there on launch day on Switch 2 and the DLC is part of the package, in addition to like extra Zelda related content or something like a Master Sword or something like that. Yeah. Also, they have a great relationship with Bandai Namco. I think that's the other big thing about it is like Bandai Namco, again, has internal teams working on Nintendo games. Like if you're going to take a big beloved Bandai game and throw it on there, Elden Ring makes the most sense. Yeah. Any other big ones? You guys, we talked about Dragon Quest a little bit. We talked about Elden Ring.
I'm curious about Stealth's thoughts on this. I mean, they're usually good within the first year. The last two systems, Monolith Soft, do you think we're getting a new game from them in year one for Switch 2?
There goes Roger.
There goes Roger.
Got it.
I'm ready.
I mean, I definitely think that we're going to see it in the showcase. Like, that's a given to me.
Yes.
Whether that releases year one, I'm not 100% sure. One thing I am sure about is Team Asano. From Square Enix. They're going to have a game year one for Switch too.
Triangle strategy 2, baby. Break it off of Benedict's route. That's what I want, man. You get Tyrant Serrano or whatever. You continue that story. That's what I want.
What about Animal Crossing? Think anything with that?
So I'm
sooner,
glad
or will
you
that
bring
be
that
later?
up. I'm glad you bring that up because I think, New Horizons really completely blew the popularity of that series out of the water, right? Like, people played that game then who never played it before. Animal Crossing was already popular. Like, I see a lot of people making the argument that, oh, you know, it really had its shining moment during COVID. But, like, realistically, you look at the sales of New Leaf. Like, Animal Crossing was on an upward trajectory. I don't see that going away anytime soon. And I think, like, with how huge cozy games are now, that they want to get that out sooner rather than later. For the Switch, I mean, I almost think that goes back to our discussion about a life service game, is maybe that's Animal Crossing. Like, maybe that's what you do. Because the big thing with New Horizons when it came out is people were like, you know, they weren't adding more content beyond the Happy Home Paradise, which was great. Like, that was really fun DLC. But people were like, where are the Nintendo items? The NES games weren't there. All these other extra things that they were expecting. You know, new sets of furniture every year. They didn't really do that in a way that even the mobile game does that, right? Like, Pocket Camp is continuously added really cool stuff and cool furniture items and things. Like, I do think they kind of missed the boat there with New Horizons, in which I think people would have played it for far longer if they did continue to drip feed stuff out. And, you know, obviously people, within the first 2-3 months, we were all at home, so we were all on the Nookazon or whatever, like trading our items, and everybody filled up their catalogs. But realistically, that game, and Nintendo has said this multiple times, is meant to be played day to day. It's not meant to be like that you get every item immediately and you get all the exact villagers that you want within 24 hours, right? Like, there is a process to it. And I think people would be upset by this, but I think if anything is going to be given like the force drip feed of content throughout the lifespan of the system, I could almost see that being Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I think Splatoon 3 might get a deluxe edition. And then, like, that team is going to work on a new Animal Crossing, making sure they have enough DLC this time.
Yeah,
because it's over 40 million sold now,
yeah.
And DLC has been over for a long time, which seems crazy.
I mean, we're coming up on end of content for Splatoon 3 this September. Yeah. That's the 2-year mark, so timing works out for something like that.
The also interesting thing about Splatoon is that, like, I don't know, obviously it sold well, right? Splatoon 3 sold well, there's no argument there, but I do think the player base is quieter this time around. I don't know, I feel like I don't see people still playing regularly Splatoon 3 in the same way they did Splatoon 2. Like, I know Spawn, and obviously mutual friend of ours, Misclick, was like huge into Splatoon 2, and then I think like 3 kind of came and went. And I know a lot of people that are like that, right? That are huge into that series that kind of fell off for 3. Not to say, again, the game was not a success.
Well,
like
she mentioned it was because there was a lot of disconnection issues with the online that it kind of threw them off.
Yeah,
like
So I'm almost wondering if they don't immediately crank out a Splatoon 4. If they do let Splatoon 3 live, maybe in the sense that what you're talking about, there's like a deluxe edition type thing with side order in the package, you know. Because side order, again, it's still not out yet. As of this recording, it's coming out soon, but still not out yet. It would be new enough where I could see them potentially doing that. Packaging it with like new weapons, maybe promising better online, that being part of the Switch 2, the whole deal with Switch 2. Yeah, I don't know. Because I think there is life left in that game. There's a lot of good content, and like the core mechanics are there, but it just seems like between the online disconnect issues and like the timing of it, I don't know. I don't think it really hit where it could have. Yeah. Any other major first-party franchise that we're missing in terms of launch year? Because I want to get from everybody like a solid 3 games. I just want every single person in this call to say 3 games, 2 first-party, 1 third-party that's there day one. Like, stake your money on it, stake bets, everything day one. Not launch window, not coming out soon, day one. What games are going to be there on Switch 2? And we can go in any order. I can even go first because I have mine in my head. I'm going to go back to what we said earlier. I think Mario Kart. I think that's their launch game. I think it's Mario Kart 10. I think 10 is going to be romanized as X. And I think it's a crossover game. I think it's like every Nintendo property. You get like Pikmin courses, Zelda courses. They've already did this with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I think they've been cooking up something. You already even see like they have enough courses where they could do retro cups with the Nintendo courses they already have in the game. Things like Yoshi's Island, things like Hyrule, Big Blue. They could easily do that. That sort of appeals to the market that really likes something like Smash Brothers, which shows off all their different franchises, what they could potentially look like on this new system. That gets a some Mario Kart out there immediately, that gets a Mario title out there without the need to have it be launch day. If it's like they don't have a 3D game ready, that could still potentially be launch window. So I think Mario Kart 10, it's a crossover game. I think we get a cross-release Metroid Prime 4 for the hardcore, and I think the big third-party game is Elden Ring with Zelda stuff in it. I'm putting my money on it. Those are the big three.
Okay. I like the idea of that. That's good.
Yeah.
Elden Ring, sure.
Yeah. I agree with you on Mario Kart. I have to have that there at launch. I'm gonna throw this out there just because I don't want to overlap with everyone else. And we didn't actually mention this, so it's a little bit of a wild prediction.
Great, let's hear it.
A follow-up to Three Houses, the next Three Houses style Fire Emblem game or at least some kind of Fire Emblem at launch would be kind of like nice and a little bit break with the tradition. And especially after I didn't personally really like Engage too much, so it was okay, but I definitely would like them to balance between the more traditional and the Three Houses direction, and maybe come up with a happy medium there. And plus, seeing it run on better hardware, those big environments like Eric Mock didn't run very well on the old Switch, so it'd be nice to see it on a new hardware. And in the I have a wild one for the third party, and I think it can happen because I think the exclusivity window will be over if the Switch comes out in October, November,
I know what you're
September
gonna
range.
say. Oh yeah.
They're bringing the Final Fantasy 7 Remake Rebirth over to Switch 2, baby.
That's
gonna have
finally.
it there, right there. Yeah,
That's right. Cloud and Sephiroth are in Smash Brothers, and now they're home on the system where they always belonged. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll add something to your Fire Emblem prediction if you want to go in with me on this. I was mentioning the cross release with Metroid Prime 4. Maybe that's their hardcore cross release as a Fire Emblem game, because Nintendo systems traditionally have some type of remake Fire Emblem game towards the end of their lifespan. We saw this with Shadow Dragon on DS. We saw this with Echoes on 3DS. I think Genealogy, that's been rumored for a long time. You could do a Genealogy remake, maybe more in the style of something like Three Houses, and release it on Switch and then have it run better on Switch too.
Yeah, I think that could be a very real possibility.
Yeah.
This is for launch? This is for launch? Like launch day? Like the system's there, you're picking up games?
You're playing it launch day. Exactly.
I'll go with the 3D Mario.
Okay.
I'll go with the system coming out in September. 3D Mario is there. Metroid Prime 4 is in November. It'll come out a few months later.
Okay.
So I have 3D Mario. I have Persona 3 Reload being there.
Okay, that's a good one. And
for the other first party game, I'm gonna go with something different. I'll go with the new Star Fox, and I would tap Ubisoft Toronto to make it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm fine with that. I don't want Zero is all I want. If they don't, please don't.
Well,
they did
Starlink, and
right.
Outside of the whole thing was the weird thing with the Star Fox content is you could tell it wasn't actually in the game because Fox would talk and then it would just shift over to the regular characters and it's like they would talk to nobody and it was they did a really good job with that, and I feel like that is a studio that Ubisoft, Nintendo seems comfortable. They let them give Mario a gun. So I feel like they would let them do Star Fox, and I think that'd be interesting just to see what they can do with it. And they do the Far Cry series as well, and they kind of do like Far Cry something else, Far Cry something else. I think right now they're sort of in that in-between period, and it might not be a bad idea to have them try to bring Star Fox back a bit.
Yeah.
I think.
I do think like a technical Marvel arcadey Star Fox would be a great launch game, right? You could showcase like something along the lines of like a Ratchet and Clank, right? Where we got Ratchet and Clank at launch for PS5, and like it really showed off what that system could do, like with jumping between the portals with no load times and just how pretty that game looked. And it had that same cartoony feel.
Space to planet, no load times, get out of your R-Wing and walk around like Star Fox Adventure style, get back in and go.
Bruh, you give me Assault 2, I'll die a happy man, man. Like,
there you go.
Star Fox Assault 2, I'm waiting for it. All right, well, who's the next brave soul? We got Stealth, we got Brandon, we got Philly. Who's up next?
Hey, I can go next.
Right.
I think the big first party launch game is going to be 3D Mario. I feel like Mario Kart can come like the next month. Just so Nintendo has like a game a month like they typically like to do.
Sure.
I think maybe even Street Fighter 6. Capcom and Nintendo have a big history with Street Fighter. They put like that Street Fighter 2 game on Switch at launch.
Yeah.
This time I think it's going to be Street Fighter 6 with better online. And yeah, I do agree with you in terms of Elden Ring. I think it's gonna be a lot of ports at launch, like things that we thought, like maybe even Visions of Mana, like that wasn't in development for Switch, maybe that's gonna come over, and like you said, like Persona 3 Reload, like things that RPGs that just make sense for Switch's audience that aren't coming to Switch that should be.
I love the idea of Street Fighter too. I think Street Fighter 6 is a really smart one because again, that relationship is there with Capcom. And they've done the Your DLC from Spy Family, and they did like TMNT. That again seems like a very easy thing for them to be like, by the way, if you get the Switch version, you get like a Mario hat for your create a character, right? All right, who's next? Philly or Brandon? I see both of you debating over there, going back and forth in your head. You're like, this means everything. People are going to come back to this in 7 years once we're looking back on the history of the launch of Switch 2. We're going to see who was right.
I've been teetering back and forth this entire time on 3D Mario or Mario Kart, because I think both make sense. Mario Kart makes, I think, more sense overall, just from sales potential perspective. That's going to get people to buy the console. I think more so than 3D Mario. 3D Mario is going to appeal to the hardcore gamer more specifically, and then Mario Kart, that's just broad appeal, baby. More people are going to come to the console for that.
That's right.
That said, if they release another first-party game, this is just pipe dream Brandon speaking now, that's when Kid Icarus Uprising HD finally happens. And that's a cross-gen game.
Please. Oh, I'm loving this talk of like arcadey shooter type things. You got a Star Fox coming from Spawn. You got Kid Icarus Uprising coming from you, Brandon. It's like, that's what I like to hear, man. Please, something like that. There was a rumor about that a while ago, too, so I could maybe see that as like a cross-release type thing. And again, Bandai has a close relationship, so if they're going to have something on the system that early, Kid Icarus Uprising HD would be good.
I could see them expanding that multiplayer mode to give you a big kind of fun multiplayer game, online multiplayer game on Switch on day one that's not Mario Kart. If we're talking third party, I think, honestly, I agree with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think that is a shoo-in for Switch, too. And then I'll throw in one more first-party game, but not on launch day, maybe like 2 months out. I think it's time for the next Mario Party. That could be cross-gen as well.
I could definitely see that happening as well. Yeah, like an actual
We're a couple years out
Mario Party.
Superstars.
Yeah, because Superstars, I guess thinking about it again, Superstars was like kind of a half remake, right? Where it was a new game, but the games were from older Mario Party games. We haven't had like a full-on new Mario Party since Super. And that game still sells well, unbelievably, on Switch, despite the fact that Superstars is like literally a better game. But yeah,
we have a bunch of people asking where the DLC is for that game. It never happened. So no,
new game, or maybe Deluxe. Maybe that's their Deluxe, right? Maybe they do Superstars Deluxe. And
better come with more content.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, Philly. Last but certainly not least, what are you hedging your bets on for launch day?
I think we're getting an open world Mario style game.
Okay.
Definitely we're gonna get one of those. Next up, I think Fire Emblem. Definitely, like we need a nice revamped Fire Emblem. I feel like Engage was just kind of not marketed as well. It wasn't really on the radar as much. I think the third game, possibly Dragon Quest. I think we're gonna get a Dragon Quest game on the Switch. I think it'll be a great way to launch 12 actually. If it comes out on all platforms exactly at the same time, and the next Switch is one of them on launch.
That would be wild if Dragon Quest 12 came out same day as the new system. Like, would be crazy. Everyone would take off work in Japan. There would be no workforce.
It'd be an insane launch.
Like
right on the Switch.
We were hoping Togashi would come back with Hunter x Hunter. It's like he's never coming back now. He's just playing Dragon Quest. That would be wild. All right. Well, I think we touched on everything. This was an awesome discussion, you guys. Any last-minute thoughts on Switch 2? Anything we didn't touch on that you guys want to discuss? The very, very end of all of this? Any final thoughts?
Does the D-pad come back?
Ooh, does the D-pad come back? I'm going to say yes. I think it does. I think enough people have clamored for it, and I think it would make for a nice little a way to differentiate it from the original Switch.
Like that? Does anyone do that? Like, hand it off to anyone? No?
I don't even use my Joy-Con.
There you go. Bring the D-pad back.
See, I'm one of those weirdos that plays with the Joy-Con in the grip. Even though I have like a bunch of beautiful Pro controllers over there, I still unclick them and
I
click
think
them right
Nintendo
back on there.
envisioned
with you?
people
I know.
just using the single Joy-Con all the time, and I just don't think it caught on like that.
Yeah. I don't know.
People just
I
bought
don't
more
need-
Joy-Cons.
That's not the sales pitch anymore. They don't need to worry about that.
No. I do agree, though, with what we said earlier, that I think the Joy-Cons are going to be compatible with it. I just don't think you'll be able to click it in. But I do think, like, all your old controllers will work. I honestly feel like if it's got a USB thing, like, GameCube controllers will come back over fine. They're going to need that for whenever Smash comes out on that thing. Otherwise, people are going to complain. Actually, you know what? That's a good thing to end on. All right. I'm going to ask all of you, because, of course, it wouldn't be a RogersBase discussion without this. All right. Smash Brothers comes out for Switch 2. Right? Whether it's a deluxe or a reboot or whatever. One character that is going to be on the Switch 2's version of Smash Brothers. Let's hear it. One character.
That we don't have yet?
That we don't have yet.
Wow.
Okay. Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter's a good one. That's a good one.
I think it's time. I'm surprised this didn't happen, but now it fits, and Roger, you're going to be very happy about this. It's Professor Layton.
Ah, man, I hope so. Oh, that game's coming out in 2025, by the way, too, which is like such a
Yeah.
bummer. That's for sure a cross-release, but yeah, Layton would be fantastic. I love that.
Go with Sakurai himself.
Sakurai himself would actually be fire.
I'm just putting me in the game if I'm him. That's it. You guys are asking for Waluigi. It's me and Waluigi clothes.
I like
There you
that.
go.
I think so long as Sakurai breathes, we will never have Waluigi playable in a Smash Brothers game. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know, for whatever reason, I think he was burned by one too many Waluigi fans, but I think we would sooner see Sakurai himself in before playable Waluigi. Philly and Damiani, I see you two deliberating over there.
Give me one more FF7 character and put Tifa in it.
Oh, please.
Tifa would be amazing in the game.
There we go. I honestly think Tifa's going to be in Tekken. I think that's like a done deal. Tifa just makes a lot of sense. I know we got the new Tekken
combos
game
are
coming
crazy.
out. Yeah. I think we're going to see her guest in a fighting game soon regardless. Yeah. All right, Damiani, you're last. Your Smash Brothers character that's coming this generation.
Yeah, I would like to see maybe a character from Zelda that's not Link, Zelda, or Ganon would be nice.
Right
on. So just another new Zelda character would be pretty cool. I mean, I think some people I'd even go for like Girahim or something like that. Could be possibly cool. Like Minish version of Vadi could be cool. A little bit,
I'd love that.
obscure.
Like Pichu-sized running around Vadi throwing wind that would actually be fire. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they could get like creative. But I feel like a big like third party edition would be a big one. Like looking at like, can I get like a Marvel character in there or something like that? Can
A
they
Marvel
go really crazy? They go really crazy. They just like they want to elevate their game. Like they got Sora. Like where do you go from there? Like where do you go when you get someone as big as Sora? You got Cloud. It's like we've conquered video game. I mean Master Chief maybe or something like that was like the last great bastion of like great characters to pilfer. But they need to go beyond. I think or maybe they do a skin pack. They bring in the Mario movie skin pack, so you could look like Chris Pratt Mario.
Oh my gosh!
And Chris Pratt Mario with Chris Pratt's voice in the game. Use it as a taunt.
Online.
Chris Pratt taunting.
That's wild. And I'm going to go with Ring Fit Trainee. I think it just makes too much sense. It's a safe bet. I can't go wrong. Ring Fit Adventure sold a lot of copies. I think we're getting Ring Fit Trainee. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. This was a fantastic discussion. Thank you to all of you for joining me as well. This was a lot of fun. Great way to kick off the new year. Hopefully, we end up getting that announcement sooner rather than later. Financials are dropping in February. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be revealed in summer. Here's hoping it gets revealed in spring. We don't have to wait too long for our predictions to come true. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on the video. Comment down below letting us know when you think the Switch 2 is going to come out and what games you think are going to be there on launch day. Once again, to Damiani, to Brandon, to Spawn, to Stealth, and to Philly, thank you very much for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye, everybody.